Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome. You are tuned to the most listened to radio talk show in the country. It's Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIV microphone on Friday.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
You know, I long for the days of Andrew Jackson and Abraham Lincoln. Just arrest the judges and put them in jail when they violate your constitutional authority. I don't think people have any idea who Andrew Jackson was. They think he was a populist. They don't know what he did. And he went too far. Don't misunderstand. But this is simply outrageous. Greetings, my friends, and welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. I've been trying all week to avoid leading with my anger over what all is happening here with the left and their essential takeover of the judiciary. And instead of just ripe anger, I've been trying to apply reason to this and inform, educate people on what is going on as best I can. But it ticks me off, folks. I can't tell you how angry it makes. And I'll tell you something. Judge Gorsuch, this whole business, there ought not even be a story of Gorsuch supposedly or didn't supposedly say whatever, that he was disheartened and demoralized by what Trump said about the judges. That whole story bothers me. Whether it's partly true, totally true, it just bothers me. We need people with guts to take these people on. We do not need people that are going to cower and kowtow, because this is the last chance we're going to have. And something else bothers me today, and it has for the longest time, and I've addressed it on I don't know how many occasions. The way I've put it on previous occasions is that Donald Trump is winging this all by himself. He's got no support. He doesn't have, like Obama had the media helping him and every liberal think tank in the world and all kinds of public advocacy helping him in protest marches, and Donald Trump has nothing. Every support group that Obama had is opposed to Trump. The only thing Trump has is the people that voted for him. What if he changes his mind one day? What if he wakes up and says, you know what? Life isn't worth this. Screw it. What if he decides, I don't care about this anymore? I don't think that's going to happen. But the point is, there needs to be some serious work making sure that what elected Trump is not just a one-time thing that only shows up every 4 years during presidential elections. There's a grassroots out there. There is a vast majority of Americans in the Electoral College election that overwhelmingly showed up for Donald Trump. And those people are desperate to still be involved and find a way to assist. They watch what's happening in the news and they are livid. They're outraged. I went out last night for the first time in a long time to a public affair. It was a cigar dinner at a golf club near here. In fact, I met a couple of prominent Republicans in the Florida House. Jose Oliva, who is is a representative from North Miami. He's going to be the Speaker of the Florida House a couple of years. And the current Speaker of the Florida House, Jose Oliva, was the cigar company last night that provided cigars. There was about 250 or 300 people at this event. All professional people, all eminently successful, some retired, some still working. And I don't do these much anymore for a host of reasons, primarily because it's just impossible for me to hear in rooms like that and to have conversations with people even at the dinner table. And so sometimes it's more frustrating than it is worthwhile for me. But this was a Marvin Shanken dinner, and I went to it. I can't tell you everybody in that room. There were even a couple of Democrats that came up to me. Everybody in that room was 1,000% behind Trump, 1,000% ticked off at what is going on. There is nothing. I was asked to give some remarks, and I stood up. There isn't a thing I could have said last night that would have offended them. There's not a thing I could have said last night that anybody would have thought was going too far in describing the Democrats, in describing these people were hungry to hear it. because they voted for Trump, and they also, I think, at times, it's not that they feel alone, because it's not that. They're on the winning side, but they know everything that's arrayed against them. And they worry about the Republicans in Congress. You know, just how firmly behind Trump and his agenda are they? In other words, they're worried that all of this is precariously balanced and that it needs constant support behind it. It's kind of frustrating to say that the only thing we've got here that gives this movement, if you want to call it that, any energy is Trump himself. That's not a cut at Trump by any stretch of the imagination. See, I don't think right now, I don't think the argument is with much merit over, are we doing populism here or are we doing conservatism? That to me is not what's most important. What's most important is defeating the left. An ongoing project that we've just won one election in that big process. It must be ongoing. And what's happening here with these judges and these two state governors, in I guess it was state of Washington, I forget, they're now doing victory laps like they won the presidency last night after this ruling, because these rulings are totally outside the law. These rulings are totally absent any reference and fealty to the Constitution. I have a story here in the stack. Hundreds of thousands rally in Iran against Trump. Who else is rallying against Trump? The Democrat Party in this country and the American left. As it so often happens, anti-American institutions, anti-American leaders, anti-American countries sound no different than the domestic Democrat Party. They sound no different than the American left. And in fact, these hundreds of thousands of Iranians rallying against Trump actually issued thanks to American Democrats for their help in supporting the nation of Iran, which is a state sponsor of terrorism. And I think it's safe to say that the Democrat Party does not care whatever damage results to this country resulting from their policy decisions or their political decisions. They'll clean that mess up later in their minds. All that matters to them right now is defeating Trump and making this election look like they actually won it, and making everybody on the victorious side, the winning side, think that it's just an aberration and not real. And that's what they're in the process of doing, and that's their modus operandi. Now, I want to review what this case is all about and give you a little judicial history as well, and talk about what is the next phase. What can Trump do? What will they do? Will they continue to fight this? Because, Trump's a winner. He likes winning. Will he continue to fight this? If he does, this could go on months, folks. These idiot, I'm sorry to be hopscotching here, but I learned of this ruling late after it had happened, after I had arrived at the cigar dinner. So I had to break away with the phone, get to a private place where I could study what the heck had happened, just because I wanted to know. We were making jokes about this, and I watched CNN earlier in the week, and some infobabe at CNN was peppering Trump supporters. Well, I've talked to a lot of lawyers, and they have said that the judges can strictly rule on what the president said during his campaign about wanting to ban Muslims. And I was beside myself here, that there is no way under the sun where that is relevant in a legal proceeding. What the president said, that would be like saying when Obama says, when they bring a knife to a fight, we bring a gun. That'd be like judges deciding that President Obama is pro-Second Amendment. You could say that he just came out and supported gun rights and because of something he said on the campaign trail. Judges and courts never do this kind of thing. But these are not judges. These are left-wing liberal hacks who wear robes. And this is going to continue because this is where the left has populated themselves. They've taken over the judiciary, and they are in the bowels of the bureaucracy in unelected positions. Here you have 3 judges on the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals who do not have access whatsoever to national security information, presuming that they know more about national security and that because of that, they can overrule the Constitution. You know, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me that whoever presented the case for the Department of Justice was incompetent. That doesn't matter. The law is the law, and the law doesn't matter now when it goes against the left. Anyway, I'm trying to rein in my anger here and keep it in check so that I continue to make salient and brilliant points. Let me take a brief time out. The president's got a press conference coming up here. It supposedly starts at 1 o'clock Eastern time. We'll jip part of it. Probably will start late, but we'll have parts of it to find out what is going on. And we'll have our in-conference commentary, as we are known for. So hang on, folks. We'll be right back and continue after this. I sometimes think we get sidetracked. And I'll give you an example of global warming debate. So here comes climate change and global warming, and here come the left, and they've got all their data. They've got all their supposed scientific data, consensus of scientists, and all this scientific data, and it's made up. It's a hoax. It's made up. It's guesswork. There's no way they can know 95% of what they're asserting because we weren't taking records way back then. So all of this, the tree rings and the ice cores and it's all made up. What do? We debate them on the science. Understandably, we have our own scientists who dispute it, but we take their premise, which means we lose the argument from the get-go. When we accept their premise that climate change is happening and we start trying to prove it negative, we waste time. Because climate change is not about climate change. It's about liberalism. If you want to defeat climate change, if you want to educate people about climate change, you educate them about liberalism and socialism and who the hell it is and who the hell they are and what the hell they're doing. If you get caught up in numbers of emissions of CO2 and what's going on at 35,000 feet in the atmosphere, you have lost the debate. And I've told the science side on our side about this. But they love it. They love the science. They love getting into it, and they love proving the theory wrong. But we're not dealing with science and climate change. We're dealing with liberalism. Same thing here. It looks like we're debating the law with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We're not. We're under assault by the left. The left does not respect the traditions and the institutions established at the founding of this country, including the court system. They have sought to overtake the court system and turn the courts into nothing more than left-wing political operations. Now, we can sit here and we can debate the aspects of their ruling, and we can go out and we can point to everybody how this is not constitutional and they don't have this right, but they still, at the end of our argument, get away with it. We can argue all day long. We can demonstrate for as long as we live how these people have turned the law upside down. At the end of the argument, they still prevail. And people then say, well, if they're so wrong on the law, and if what you say is right, that they're abrogating the law or violating the law or ignoring separation of powers or whatever, why do they prevail? And the answer to that, hello, liberalism, liberalism. But our side loves to debate the law. A lot of people love to debate the law. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying do not expose the fraud that these people are engaging in with rulings like Judge Robart And another, I am so worn out with hearing we can't comment on these people, that somehow they are above and beyond scrutiny, analysis. Who says they're left-wing hacks that wear robes? That's exactly what they are. They don't, if they see a law in their way, they simply ignore it. They find a way around it because they know it's very difficult to overturn. Now, the Ninth Circus leads the league in having decisions of theirs overturned at the Supreme Court. There's nobody even close, and it's a stunning number. I don't have it right in front of me. But you would be shocked at the number of decisions from the Ninth Circus that the Supreme Court agrees to take. I mean, it's like 80% of them, folks, or maybe even higher than that, get overturned. We don't know about this one, if it ever got to the Supreme Court, without Gorsuch being there, because they got 4 liberal hacks on that court, and Anthony Kennedy, when he has written and opined on matters like this, he has found for the power of the judiciary over the executive. So it's not a guaranteed win if it goes to Supreme Court. But at the root of all of this, the Constitution being ignored, the will of the people being ignored, liberalism, and they have their various areas where they engage in this nefarious activity, and those areas shield them and give them authority and give them respect, like scientists in climate change and judges in the law, wearing black robes, eminently educated, among the best and brightest of our legal minds, educated in some of the finest liberal law schools in the country. I happen to think, you're not going to see this represented on the news, I happen to think the vast majority, everybody voted for Trump, is livid over what's happening here with this Robart character and the Ninth Circus. You know what else they're livid about? You turn on CNN, I just saw it a minute ago. Jacob Chaffetz, a bunch of other Republicans in the House going back home, and they're having town hall meetings. And a bunch of progressives are showing up. And they're bought and paid for, just like they're bought and paid to riot. They're bought and paid to protest. The media is in the headlines, Republican congressman facing outrage from constituents in town halls, made to look like the American people didn't want any part of this. They didn't want any part of what Trump's doing, any part of what the Republican House is doing. And they're hearing it. And that's not true. It's fake, phony protests at these Republican town hall meetings. Bought and paid for. Back in just a second. Greetings. Welcome back. Open Line Friday. Rush Limbaugh will be heading to your calls here just a second. Daily Caller, Department of Justice ignored evidence of terrorism leading to the travel ban being struck down. Now, I'm going to deal with some of the legalities of this, but then again, this really isn't the legality. This is the point. These judges at the Ninth Circuit and this Judge Robart sitting there reviewing the Trump executive orders. Well, I don't see any evidence that any people from those 7 countries have committed acts of terrorism. I don't think So what? That doesn't matter. You don't get to decide that because you don't have the intel. You don't get the briefings, Judge Robart. And neither do these 3 or the whole committee out there on the Ninth Circuit. Now, the DOJ, one of Trump's big problems is he still doesn't have his people there. There's a bunch of Obama holdovers that I think are sabotaging him. And a classic illustration of this, Department of Justice attorneys ignored ample evidence of terrorists from those 7 nations affected by Trump's executive order. And this helped lead to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upholding a suspension of the order. The Ninth Circuit ruling said, in part, the government has not shown that a stay is necessary to avoid irreparable injury. The government has pointed to no evidence that any alien from any of the countries named in the order has perpetrated a terrorist attack. So what? That is irrelevant to the law here. It doesn't matter. The law is clear. It is from 1952. It invests in the president's sole discretion by proclamation to do this. But that's not the kicker. The kicker is there have been at least 80 alleged terrorists who have immigrated from those 7 countries since 9/11. And if you're like me, you're saying, well, where the hell was the DOJ lawyer arguing this executive order before these 2 courts? Why didn't he have this information? Folks, I don't know if they had it and purposely didn't use it. I don't know if because they're just now getting settled in after the inauguration, they weren't prepared to defend the executive order in court. I don't know if the implementation of this thing was not up to speed. None of that matters when you get down to the law. None of it matters. And even if there had not been 80 different terrorists get into this country from these 7 countries, which there have been, even if there hadn't, it doesn't mean that there won't be. And it doesn't mean that the administration doesn't have intel showing that they're trying to. The courts can't possibly know any of that. That is why, among many other reasons, they are not constitutionally charged to police national security. But this Judge Robart, presumed to know more than the president, presumed to care more than the president, and presumed that the president's stupid. The Ninth Circuit, all they had to do was back up Judge Robart and make the same conclusions. But what's going on here is all 4 of these judges, Robart and these 3 judges at the Ninth Circuit, are simply Trump opponents. They were not acting as judges. They've got the cover of acting as judges because they work at courts. But they are left-wing activists. It's no different than Donna Brazile. These 3 judges are no different than Paul Begala or James Carville sitting on these courts. That's exactly who they are. Or Matt Lauer, or take your pick of any drive-by journalist. That is what we're dealing with. Yes, they've been to law school. A lot of good that's done anybody. They have been to law school, and they have served on various lower courts, and they have distinguished themselves with their judicial writings and blah, 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 blah. But when it comes down to understanding, defending, protecting, and enforcing the supreme law of the land, what do? They piss on it. And I'm fed up with this. And there's got to be a way around this other than simply trying to demonstrate how these people are wrong on the law. They have lifetime appointments, so you can't impeach them. There is a process for removal. Congress has more power over the federal judiciary than anybody knows, and they have more ability to deal with reestablishing, redrawing districts, however they want to deal with the judiciary. That is under Congress's control, as vested in it by the Constitution. We're not dealing with judges here. Fine point. Yes, they're judges, but that's not why they're there. They're there to advance the Democrat Party agenda. They are there to, whenever they can, attack, limit, destroy any other agenda that is in opposition to theirs. You know these people. You know these people hate Trump. They despise Trump they're all part of the establishment. They despise Trump because he's from outside and because he won the election. And again, when I boil all this down, the fact is Trump doesn't have anybody helping him. And I don't mean to portray him as helpless. Don't misunderstand. Again, I'm sorry for the redundancy, but, Obama could go out and say and do whatever he wanted, and the media is backing it up and supporting and making it look brilliant and normal. All day long, all night long, all week long, all month. With Trump, whatever he does, it's portrayed as insane, dangerous, risky, uninformed, stupid, or what have you. Who is out there countering that other than some of us in the alternative media? but it's a never-ending on, and there has to be a plan for this. That's why I think Trump ought to continue to go out and do rallies. I think Trump ought to go out and continue to draw 20, 25,000 people and demonstrate, let the pictures show that the pictures the media is creating are bogus and not representative of public opinion. But that still puts the onus on Trump. And if I were Trump, frankly, I'd be kind of ticked off that I have to do that. What more do you want from me? I won. Now he's faced with people whining and moaning he's not doing things fast enough, or the Congress isn't doing things fast enough. Folks, you got to understand here, there is a lot that has been put in the way, and presidents are not kings, and they don't just get to sign their name to stuff and have it happen. We now have been told the wall, 3.5 years to build a wall. We are told that repealing Obamacare, not going to happen in 2018. And that's Trump that said that, not the Republicans in Congress. They may be simpatico to it. But I think a lot of people were expecting the left to realize they had lost, to lay down and get out of the way. And I tried to tell everybody that wasn't going to happen. You've got late night comedy shows and Saturday Night Live now given as much weight as standard day-to-day media network broadcasts. It is an onslaught. And there's a part of me that believes that all of this is leading to a continued backfire on the Democrats and on the left. I think they're going to continue to lose elections. There's a story. I have a story in the stack today. It's one of these deep in the weeds analysis of why they lost. And it's the most ridiculous thing. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And it never once mentioned that their ideas are rejected. It never once mentioned that the American people don't want their ideas. It never once mentions Obama. Then there's another piece in the New Republic that kind of gets after Obama for not taking the time and expending the effort to get his revolution embedded at the states. That Obama didn't care enough about the party. That Obama only cared about himself, and he didn't do enough to build the roots of his revolution. And I read that. And I thought, well, let them have that argument. But the same thing can be said right now of Trump. The same thing can be said in a proactive way, that needs to happen. These people in the grassroots that made this happen, they need to be nurtured. They need to be made to believe that what they did was real and matters and will continue to be and triumph if they do not jump ship, if they don't go wobbly, because that's what the left is all about. You're supposed to get so mad over this court ruling that you're supposed to give up. You are supposed to think, what's the point? We can't beat them. We beat them at the ballot box. They lose elections. They can't stop anything in the House. They can't stop anything in the Senate. And look, they're stopping Trump in the courts. We can't lose. And they want you to throw your hands up and quit and maybe move to New Zealand. I have to take a break. I just saw the clock. What did you say that I sound like I'm on the edge? I am in total losing it? I sound like I'm that close to losing it? I am in total control. I have never been in more total control. I got a fast instant message here from my brother. He said, "Screw keeping your anger in check. People love it when you get mad." And I wrote back, "I know, but if I get too angry, sometimes I worry that I will not make as much sense as I want to make." So that's why I try to rein in the anger. But I'm not teetering on the edge here. You make it sound like I'm just precariously balanced and one wrong word and I'm gone for the day and maybe not come back on Monday. What do you mean? Oh, launch it expletive-laden. No, I have more maturity and I have a greater vocabulary. I do not need to descend into a launch of expletives in order to make my point. I mean, I said the P for urine word on purpose, not because I had lost control, Mr. Snerdley. I said that to penetrate the noise. What little faith who has? Snerdley? No, Snerdley. It's not that Snerdley doesn't have faith. It's that Snerdley cares so deeply he doesn't want anything screwed up here. So I checked the email, and somebody said, okay, Rush, give me one example from the Ninth Circus ruling that you think will sum it up and explain it to everybody. Okay, try this. And this I referred to earlier when I saw last week, or earlier this week, CNN, some brain-dead infobabe actually suggest, well, you know, the president said on a campaign trail he wanted to ban Muslims, and the court could rely on that. No, they can't. They cannot do that. That's pure politics. That's not legal. And besides, if there were a Muslim ban, it would not just be 7 countries. It would name every country. There was no Muslim ban in this order. Okay? This Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals was never going to do anything other than what they did. This was a political opposition maneuver. The court cited the president intimating during the campaign that he might implement a Muslim ban. Candidate Trump spoke on the campaign trail of implementing a Muslim ban. Except this isn't. But it doesn't matter even if it was. This isn't. 7 countries plus Syria. 85% of the Muslim population is not covered by this executive order. There is no way that this was a religious ban in any way or a Muslim ban whatsoever. The fact that it's obviously not a Muslim ban and the fact that Trump did not say anything in the executive order about it being a Muslim ban, and that they have to go and find a statement Trump made on the campaign trail to associate with this in order to uphold this so-called judge in Seattle. This is simply a ruling that has nothing to do with the law. This is pure Democrat hackery. This is pure left-wing hackery. They get to make it look like it's law because they wear robes and they are judges on a court. And so that imagery conveys all the authority and the rights that they have to do this kind of thing when it is in clear violation of the Constitution. Let me grab a call. It's Open Line Friday. Try to get one in the first hour every Friday. Appleton, Wisconsin. I've been there a number of times. Nick, how are you doing? Great to have you with us, sir.
Thank you. I'm great to hear you. My question is based on your last point there. As a matter of process, how was this judge able to even put a stay on this ban as a matter of law and or process, you know? It might be grandiose, but if the president were to make like another order, like, you know, like to choose to wage war in a different country or something like that, could a court in the Ninth Circus over there decide, no, we don't like this idea, let's put a stay on it?
No, here's the way it happens. I'm glad you asked. What happens is Trump writes the executive order. The protests were waiting. The protesters, the rioters were waiting for the go order since last November. They get into gear. The first thing that happens is that pictures on TV make it look like this is outrageous. The president of the United States has lost his mind. Oh, my God, we're denying people from all over the world into the country. Then the next thing that happens is that Democrats go judge shopping, and they find a left-wing hack in a left-wing state that is going to make a left-wing political ruling, and they found it in Robart. And they go to Robart. You say, how can Robart do it? Because he's a judge. It's like anything in politics, and this is politics, this is not law. In politics, Nick, you can do what anybody will let you do. The Constitution, you can violate it all day if your political opponents don't stop you or punish you or make you pay for it. So in this case, Robart issues a stay when he does not have the legal authority to do so. And then the media chimes in and singing the guy's praises, and everybody, what a great, courageous act to take on the president like this, who wants to ban all Muslims and Judge Robarts standing for the downtrodden and the thirsty and the hungry and all that stuff. And they set the public mind that Trump's out of control, he's out of his mind, and a simple-minded little judge in the state of Washington has brought reason to and that means if the Trump administration tells a judge to go to hell, then they got an additional political problem with that. So that's the process. And I'm out of time here, but I will explain what happens when they rewrite this. Okay, everybody breathlessly waiting for the presidential press conference. Looks like it's the East Room. I've been there. That's the gold the gold drapes. And we'll tune into part of it. Well, you know what? Darn it. I didn't know this was a joint press conference with the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe-san. I had no idea. So I don't know when we're going to jip this. I don't want to get the joint stuff with the Japanese guy speaking and the translator and the president respond. I want to wait till I get to the reporter questions. Because you know as well as I do, the reporters are not going to ask the Japanese Prime Minister a single question. The American reporters are not going to do that.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
You know what the first question is going to be? Mr. President, are you considering resigning? Mr. President, is it really worth it? Mr. President, you think you'll be impeached? Because what you did with your daughter and Nordstrom, Mr. President? How are you doing, folks? It's great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network and the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Telephone number if you want to be with us, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. So let me amend what I said before I knew that it was a joint press conference with the Prime Minister from Japan. We are going to jip it, but I will be the judge as to when we jip it, because I probably am not going to spend much time with the joint aspect of this. But when they go to questions, when the two Prime Minister, the Prime Minister and the President have concluded their statements, then we'll jip the questions. I don't know why I didn't know. I just thought the standard press conference. I forgot the Japanese Prime Minister was in town. My bad. Now, the last caller that we had wanted to know what happens the next time regarding if there's another executive order and if there is a rewrite, what happens next, what will the left do, and what if we don't submit a new one and just ride this out? Folks, that could be months. When you start talking about the Supreme Court, it could be months. I'm looking for a soundbite here with Dershowitz, and I hope I'm not confusing it with something I had yesterday. Yeah, let's go to... let's 13, 14, and 15. Let's start here with Jeffrey Toobin. Wait, do I want to say... Hang on just a second. See this Jeffrey Lord bit with it. Yeah, give me number 9. We're going to do number 9, and then we're going to do... 8 and 9, then we'll jump to 13. Jeffrey Lord was on CNN, Anderson Cooper, last night, and talking about the Supreme Court, the Ninth Circuit ruling. And don't worry, I know they've started. We'll jip this thing. We won't miss anything, the press conference. Here's Jeffrey Lord making an argument about how Trump could proceed here after the Ninth Circus continued to stay on his executive order.
Newt Gingrich, when he was running for president in 2011, talking about the Hamdan versus Rumsfeld case involving Guantanamo and the rights of prisoners. And Speaker Gingrich said, I would instruct the national security officials in the Gingrich administration to ignore the recent decisions of the Supreme Court on national security matters, and I would interpose the presidency in saying, as the commander-in-chief, we will not enforce this. This is called departmentalism. And this goes back to Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in 1819, each department of the national government is truly independent of the others and has an equal right to decide for itself the meaning of the Constitution in the cases submitted to its action.
Okay, were you following that? Now, this is an admitted Trump supporter, Jeffrey Lord, writes the American Spectator, and he's citing actual and true American history. He's reciting what Jefferson wrote, and he is quoting Newt Gingrich. Now, he's talking to Jeffrey Toobin. He's a legal analyst at CNN. As far as these people are concerned, there is no co-equal branch business. The judiciary runs this country. Yes, there's separation of powers. But whenever a court speaks, whether they are condemning the constitutionality of a law from Congress or whether they are condemning a presidential action, the Supreme Court is it. The Supreme Court is the last word. Here comes Jeffrey Lord. No. Thomas Jefferson's up to each branch to decide how in the world they are going to define the Constitution, separation of powers. And he quoted Gingrich as saying, look, matters of national security, a court can go to hell. I'm going to ignore what the court gets wrong because they don't have all the information I have, and I'm going to implement what I think best. Well, now, you can imagine the reaction this got on CNN.
God's sake, Jeff, that is ridiculous. Well, the idea that the President of the United States can ignore judgments of the court. You know, Andrew Jackson did it regarding the Cherokee Indians. Abraham Lincoln did it during the Civil War, which is a little different from what's going on now.
Well, according to all my liberal friends, we're in a Civil War.
The idea that a president, I mean, you know, much credit to Donald Trump, frankly, for saying, see you in court, rather than saying, I'm ignoring the court. Newt Gingrich's lunacy is not something that anyone should look up to.
Wait a minute. Kudos to Donald Trump. Much credit to Donald Trump for saying, see you in court. You know, it's fascinating. Andrew Jackson, by the way, Lincoln did more than what Jeffrey Lord is attributing to him. And Abraham Lincoln actually put a sitting member of Congress in jail. He sent the military around to roust the guy up, put him in jail. Roger Taney was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he gave a ruling that Lincoln didn't like on habeas corpus, and he almost put Taney in jail. The fact it was a civil war. You know, folks, I got to tell you something. I don't think we're that far from a civil war in this country right now. I'm not talking about armed conflict north versus south, but we have a divide in this country that is in no way going to be bridged. It isn't going to be bridged by compromise. It's not going to be bridged by walking across the aisle and getting along with people. And it's not going to be bridged by persuading people to agree with us and vice versa. The only way this is ever going to end is when one side gets defeated, politically defeated, and becomes a demonstrable minority. That's the only way any of this is going to end. The left does not want this to end. This is normalcy for the left. You must understand this. This is what they want life in America to be, day in and day out. Remember, they are victims. They are not happy. As victims, it is impossible to be happy. It's impossible to be content. They think there are no reasons to be happy. Even when Obama was winning and he was in the White House, they were still livid and angry every day over what? The fact that there was opposition to Obama. They weren't even happy when he won. They would not have been happy had Hillary won because there would have been opposition, and they can't stand opposition. They don't think opposition is warranted or justified. So there is no common ground between the divide, the divisions in this country. In that sense, there already is a civil war. I'm not talking about armed conflict. I'm talking about a battle. How does it end? Are you going to persuade the libs in your neighborhood? You think they're going to persuade you? It isn't going to happen. Not en masse. I mean, you might randomly influence somebody at the Chamber of Commerce, at the Rotary Club or wherever, but in mass, it isn't going to happen. And they sure as hell, folks, are not going to persuade me. There is no way under the sun that I ever, being of conscious, sound mind and body, ever agree with liberalism about much anything. It isn't going to happen. And I'm not alone in that. So what is the solution to this? We just go on like this? Because that's what's going to happen. The left, this is what energizes them. This is what gives them their meaning in life. This is what gives them a reason to get up every day. As long as somebody else is paying them, as long as somebody's providing them food stamps, as long as somebody's giving them health care, as long as they do not have to work in order to live, this is how they want to conduct their day. Causing trouble, raising hell, opposing everything they resent that is characterized or classified as normal. They are enraged and angry throughout the day and night, and they have been my entire life. It's intensified with every year of my life. This is what life in America is going to be until one side loses and concedes and surrenders. Now, you tell me which side's it going to be. And you look at the onslaught and you look at every direction they are coming at us from. Every issue that they supposedly have is nothing more than a trick and a disguised effort to advance their agenda. I don't care if it's judicial activism, it's climate change, civil rights, equal pro-life abortion, pro-choice, what have you, funding plan. It's all about advancing their agenda and eliminating us. It's not really about climate change. They succeed in making their brain-dead rank and file think that the world will not be habitable in 30 years. But it's a crock. You tell me where the agreement's going to be. You tell me where the compromise is going to be. They're not going to stop until they destroy the Catholic Church. They're not going to stop until the Catholic Church becomes pro-choice. You think that's ever going to happen? You think the Catholic Church will ever sanction gay marriage with openly gay priests and lesbian nuns? You think they'll openly sanction? Because they're not going to stop until they get that, one way or the other. Do you think that'll ever happen? We have the most socialist pope that we've had in our lifetimes right now. The Catholic Church is closer to this precipice, my observation, than it's been in a long time. But to say that the very things that define Catholicism and Christianity, they're all under assault. Every damned institution in the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Candy Stripers, for crying, nothing's safe. How does this get resolved? So here you have Jeffrey Lord pointing out, well, you know, the president can just ignore it. Jeffrey, don't be silly. You idiot. You stupid, dumb idiot. That's arrogant, condescending attitude they bring to this stuff. When, in fact, American history is replete. How come the judiciary gets to ignore him? How come the judiciary gets to tell the president to go to hell, but when the president tells the judiciary to go to hell, somehow we're all going to hell? The judiciary can do whatever they want as far as Jeffrey Toobin's concerned, as far as every liberal is concerned. Any liberal court to tell anybody whatever is perfectly fine, and you can't argue with it. And you can't oppose it. And let a president say, I don't believe him. I'm not gonna obey. To hell with, and you would think it'd be the end of civilization. So how does this resolve itself? My good friends. Here's more Jeffrey Toobin. And he's still talking to Jeff Lord about, just play the bite. I don't know what, I know it works.
It's a complete repudiation of the Trump administration's position on this case. And it is also now 4 judges who have reviewed this, 2 George W. Bush appointees, 2 Democratic appointees, and all 4 have ruled against. The Trump administration now has 2 options. One is go to what's called an en banc, more judges on the Ninth Circuit. It would be 11 judges to hear the case. Or go directly to the Supreme Court to challenge this stay.
That's not going to happen until Gorsuch is confirmed. And that's not going to be the smooth sailing everybody's telling you it is. He may end up being confirmed, but it's not going to be the smooth. They're just telling him, oh, yeah, this guy's so brilliant. Oh, he is. There's no way. We can't stand in the way of this guy. You wait. Can't stand in the way of this guy. They stand in the way of everything. Now, here's Dershowitz. Dershowitz, law professor emeritus, well-known left-wing legal scholar from Hartford, also on Anderson Cooper last night. Question, Professor Dershowitz. You said there's actually a third option the president has here.
Third option is for the president to realize he's not going to win on this stay issue. He may win 3 months from now, 4 months from now, but he has said on camera that this decision poses a grave threat to the national security of the United States. So his option is very simple. Withdraw the current order that is subject to the stay, write a new order with the help of his new attorney general, national security people, that will survive constitutional attack.
Very interesting. Is that possible? Is there a way to survive? Because it's not constitutional attack. It is liberal attack. This is what's happening. Oh, I know it looks like it's a constitutional attack because of the way the judges talk and the way the judges write. And I know, but Rush, how can it be liberalism when two of these judges are George W. Bush? It's establishment versus outsider. Liberal versus conservative, you name it. Trump is the object of scorn, and it doesn't, he could write the perfect executive order. You think these guys have already ignored the law once? They've ignored that statute, which is as crystal clear as 2 + 2 = 4. They've ignored that to stay this executive order. You think they won't just find another reason and be able to couch it in some legal mumbo-jumbo to suggest that it's unconstitutional? Of course they will. One more Dershowitz, and we have to go to the timeout. He continued and concluded, actually, with this.
There's another way that he can do it, too. He can leave this order in effect, leave it subject to a stay, and then issue a new order which supplements the order. That way he protects his ego. He doesn't have to say I was wrong. He just says, look, there's a stay in effect. I'm now going to issue a new order, and that new order applies only to A, B, C.
Now, there are areas here that gave it trouble. I mean, issuing this blanket ban on entry to people that had already passed muster and were green card holders. And I knew when that was, I mean, he's well within his rights to do it, but that was going to present problems from the get-go. And they did this with no advance warning so as to prevent what's happening now. What's happening now is that we're being flooded by refugees from these 7 countries, and even Bashar al-Assad, the evil Sorin from Syria, is saying, I know some terrorists from here are getting into the United States now. There have to be. The law of averages. Some of the people you're letting in are terrorists. I have no doubt. No doubt whatsoever. But that's okay, folks. That's okay, because we have to stop Trump and the Republicans. That's... All right, so reporters just asked Trump, given what you've learned the last 2 weeks about how bad terrorism is, do you think you can protect the homeland? Do you think you can protect the homeland? And Mr. Japanese Prime Minister, do you think it's a mistake for the U.S. to pull out of the TPP? Here's what's happening.
And do good for our country. It's always going to be that way, at least during my administration, I can tell you that.
All right, here comes the Japanese Prime Minister. You'll be talking about TPP here. We'll get the...
Of course, we are fully aware of President Trump's decision. On economic issues, we will be discussing at the working lunch to follow. As for Japan and the United States, trade and investment, as well as economic relations, how can we develop and grow our relationship? As I have already mentioned, Deputy Prime Minister Aso and Vice President Pence will create a new framework for dialogue.
I agree with that 100%.
I'm quite optimistic that the good
Me too. Absolutely. No question about it.
Now, for the free and fair common set of
No, you got to go all the way out. You can't go partial way out. You got to go all the way.
Regime in the region, and that was the purpose of TPP, and that the importance have not changed. I myself believe that.
Right, there you have it. We're all in. We're not part the way in, part the way out. Screw it. TPP or nothing.
NHK の原と申します。安倍総理大臣に伺います。日本の自動車市場ですとか。
Translation: Mr. Trump, are you preparing to resign?
Foreign exchange of Japan. In the prior remarks, there have been discrepancy in your positions. So
if not, why not?
What were the discussions, and were you able to narrow down the gap? And President Trump had said that he will make the United States a great country.
Okay. Look, I knew this was going to happen. Let's bump out of this. This is my bad. I did not know this was a joint presser, or I would have not have committed to joining this in progress. And I think the whole thing is going to be like this, because you just can't ignore the Japanese prime minister there when you're trying to destroy President Trump. I mean, you've got to include the Japanese prime minister in your destroy Trump questions. And that's going to lead to the translations and the two voices at once, which make it very difficult to follow. So we come back, I'll take a break here. We'll get started with more of your calls on Open Line Friday. And anything that happens here at this presser, we'll be ready to jip it. Sweat nothing, folks. Where are you, El Rushmore? I'm a little hoarse today, folks, but through the magic of audio processing equipment, you probably can't even tell. Now, here's the thing. If you want another reason to really be ticked off about what's happened here with the presidential executive order, understand this. The executive order, and even the AP has to admit this. The executive order substantively has not been killed. Even the AP says the three-judge panel denied the motion for stay and set a briefing schedule for fuller arguments on the merits of the appeal, barring an immediate appeal to the Supreme Court. The government's opening brief is due March 23rd, with the state's filing due March 24th. This will be before Judge Robart. In other words, this executive order has never been argued. The substance of this has not been argued, much less decided. It has simply been stayed because the left has some hack judges who are using obstructionism here, and they're hiding behind so-called legal principle to do it. That's the thing that enrages me. Judge Robart did not even review the substance. I have people sending me the statute that this whole executive order was based on. They've just encountered it. They've just read the statute. I've read it to you the past 2 days. And when you read the statute, how in the name of Sam Hill can any judge stop this? And that's the point. Robart didn't even get into this. Robart went to well, you know what? I haven't seen any terrorists come in from these 7 countries. This sounds like a potential religious ban to me. I think I'm going to stay. They went and found a judge who would do hackery. So the substance of the executive order has not even been argued. And yet look what people think. People think that the substance is what has been stayed and overturned. People think that Trump wrote something that's so outrageous that these mild-mannered, brilliant judges, in order to save democracy, had to make immediate moves to rein in our out-of-control tyrant president. That's what they want people to think. That's what ticks me off about this. None of this is honest. All of this is usual trickery and lies and distortions and misdirection coming from people on the left. So the Trump executive order hasn't even really been argued because the Ninth Circuit could not rule. This is why, you know what? I mentioned this yesterday. If there were some serious judging going on here, this executive order would have been sent right back to Robart with the Ninth Circuit saying, we can't judge this. There's nothing to judge. There's no ruling here. We have to send it back. Robart, you've got to conduct hearings on this. There's nothing for us to review. We are an appellate court. There's no finding here. We can't appeal anything here, which is the damn truth. Robart has not yet conducted one substantive hearing on this. He just stayed it because a couple of hack Democrat governors wanted him to. And he's a hack Democrat, so he was going along with them. Plain and simple. I'll read that executive order. Not the executive. I'm going to read the statute to you again. Let me get back to the phones. I don't want people getting backed up here for too much time. We'll start in this half hour with Mike in Salisbury, Maryland. Great to have you on the program, sir. Hello.
Hi, Rush. How you doing? Listen, I have a question for you. What would happen if Trump just ignored the Ninth Circuit Court and implemented his executive order? Because we have the majority. We have the Congress. We have the Senate and House of Representatives. What would happen, hypothetically speaking, if he just ignored what they said and he went ahead with it?
Well, what would happen is politics. And the politics would be the media would have on-air conniptions. The media would go literally insane and nuts, and they would go 24/7, wall-to-wall, with guest after guest after guest.
Well, they're doing that now.
Portraying Donald Trump as tyrannical, deserving of being impeached. This must not stand. He needs to be out of office by the end of the week. I mean, it would be unprecedented. You haven't seen anything. You think what's going on now is bad. If Trump would basically say, you, and move on with this. Mm-hmm. Now, technically, though, your question is, what can they do to stop him?
Yeah, I mean, if he did it, what could they do to him legally? If they're fighting dirty, why can't we?
They just continue to sue him. And then you throw open, okay, where do you sue him? They're going to find a place that's it's called judge shopping. I don't pretend to have the answers to something like that. There's precedent for it. Presidents have ignored judges in the past, and all hell broke loose. Some presidents got away with it, and some didn't.
Yeah.
Too many variables. I also, to do something like that, you would have to have your party on your side too. And if you're gonna openly tell Judge Robart, hey, so-called judge, take a look at this, and you go on TV and you rip up his ruling, and then you reinstate the ban. Well, here come the protests, and if all it takes, is John McCain going on TV, I strongly disagree. I think our president's out of control. I think he's horrible. I think it's a mistake. This is why he should never have been elected. You have stuff like that happening. Anyway, I appreciate the call. I understand the sentiment, too. Look, there's a part of me that would love to see it. Don't misunderstand. But there are better ways. There are better ways. Look, see, here's what can't be denied. At the ballot box, these people are continuing to lose. This is what they've got left, the judiciary and the bureaucracy. And folks, I'm telling you something. I just want to reiterate. When we had oral arguments before the Ninth Circus, whoever, we didn't have Sessions as Attorney General, so we don't know how the judge or how the lawyer to argue for the president was picked. But he was not informed. He was not effective. Ditto for whoever argued before the so-called Judge Robart. Because here's Robart. I don't see any evidence here that we have any terrorists from those 7 countries. And there's only 80 examples. So you have to ask yourself, all right, is there plenty of Obama holdovers here? I mean, there's a story today. Trump's president, right? There's a story today. The State Department is what it says. The State Department is ushering in hundreds of refugees. The State Department's opening the border and opening doors and ushering in this period of this. Well, it's Trump's State Department. How the hell can that happen? So there's still plenty of potential for sabotage because the left has had people embedded in deep, dark crevices and crannies of the bureaucracy that they're not elected, so you can't unelect them or get rid of them. And they're there to do exactly what these judges are doing. Now, here is the federal statute. Just going to read it one more time. I know you've heard this, but I'm going to read it one more time because this is why I'm so livid. It is Title 8 U.S. Code, Inadmissible Aliens. This is the law of the land since the 1950s, and it was written by Congress and signed by the Prexy. Suspension of entry or imposition of restrictions by the president. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he, capital H, capital A, E, he may by proclamation, meaning just by saying so, and for such period as he, meaning he alone shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. The translation for this is, the President of the United States, according to statutory United States law, has sole and total power over who and who doesn't get into this country for as long as he may deem necessary, when such entry would be judged to be by him detrimental to the interests of the United States. I don't care what you think of Trump. The rule of law is the glue that holds this country together. And there is simply no way that a competent judge who respects the law could stay the presidential executive order based on external political concerns, because the law covers everything. Even if the president said during the campaign that he was going to ban Muslims. You realize that's the basis for Robart and the Ninth Circuit, one of the many bases for telling Trump he can't do this? Something he said on the campaign trail? When common sense says if it was a Muslim ban, why is he leaving 85% of the Muslim population free and open to come into the country? This could not be more clear. You know, normally legalese, you got to go out and hire somebody to pay $1,000 an hour to translate this stuff. But this is just crystal clear. There's no ambiguity. There's no confusion. There's no double or triple meanings here. It's clear as this is why I'm so ticked off. There is no basis for any judge to say that Trump's executive order fails to meet the tests applied to it by law or by the Constitution. They have to make them up. And when they start making up these things, guess what they make up? Their own political policy preferences. Anyway, I got to take another break, folks. We will continue with more phone calls from you here on Open Line Friday. Don't go away. You know, folks, I need a break from this. So I'd say next hour, I'm going to tell you about I switched shafts in my driver and got 25 additional yards. And I have, you know, I've been one of these people. I've had the golf-centric nutcases and play with some of these guys that are just nuts about it. You know, you need a different shaft in that club. What do you mean different shaft? Yeah, you need an 88 gram instead of 92 gram, and you need a stiff versus a regular flex. I don't swing the club fast enough for Anthem. So I actually tried it. I actually tried putting different shafts in my driver, and I was stunned at the difference. At least with the kind of shaft that I was trying. I'll tell you about it in the next hour. Get this. The left is flooding the zone. Reuters has a story. There are now cases. You ready for this? There are now cases moving through 11 of the 13 U.S. appeals court circuits challenging Trump's executive order. And that does not include what are a bunch of habeas corpus petitions out there or challenges to detention. The left is trying to get some people released. The left is trying, in addition to keeping the border wide open to anybody who wants to come in, the left is issuing habeas corpus challenges to get people who are in detention released. And these are being filed on behalf of individual people detained at airports after the ban, a majority of which would have been dropped after people were released. The headline of the story, Trump's travel ban faces multiple legal challenges. And just to cut to the chase, in 11 of 13, there are only 13 federal appellate circuits. In 11 of them, the left has mounted legal challenges to Trump's executive order. So they're not just going to rely on the Ninth Circuit. They're challenging this in any number of different ways, different from the way Robart dealt with it, for example, the so-called judge in Seattle. Tony in Knoxville, Tennessee, thank you for waiting, sir. You're next here on Open Line Friday. How are you?
Great, Rush. Mega dittos from Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Thank you very much, sir.
I tell you, Rush, it is so frustrating. We are sitting here, and we won the election. We played by the rules. We did our civic duties.
No, we didn't. We violated the biggest rule by winning.
Exactly. So here's my question. We're sitting out here. All of us, we're yelling at the radios and TVs. What is our short-term and long-term recourse? What can we do as the silent majority out there sitting around going, this is ridiculous?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm looking for the story here. Yes, there's a story by Matthew Boyle today at Breitbart.com. Headline, The Spirit of America. Conservative grassroots leaders plan massive pro-Trump demonstrations nationwide. Conservative grassroots leaders are planning a series of massive pro-Trump rallies nationwide. Breitbart News has learned on February 27th and March 4th, the rallies, dubbed the Spirit of America rallies, will spring up nationwide in cities and towns across America. I would say find the nearest one to you and go.
Yes, you know what? Absolutely. I mean, it's unfortunate we have to go to this level of having to get uncomfortable and go out. And
the aggressor sets the rules in any conflict.
Yeah.
And if this is how they are going to try to change and shift public opinion, they've got to be met head on with this.
Amen. Amen to that.
The problem is we have jobs.
I will definitely be there.
Oh, good for you. But I'm not, folks, this is not a cliche. I'm telling you, we have jobs. They, many times, are paid to do this. Do you realize these professional protesters, when you hear that George Soros is funding them, what does it actually mean? Well, they're being paid. Some of them qualify for food stamps. They're all living off the government. They do not have jobs. This is de facto their job. And it's made to look like, just the exact opposite, made to look like these are people who are so concerned and so devoted that they are sacrificing their own personal lives to join the protest march and to stop this tyrannical president, when in fact they're bought and paid to do exactly this. Paid with food stamps, paid, their housing is taken care of, some of them even have access to health care. It is an entire way of life for these people. You and I, this is not how we make our living, but they do. Betsy DeVos tried to go to work today. She was met by a violent protest refusing to let her in the door. New education secretary. They are out of control. Folks, the left is gone. Talent on loan from God. Rush Limbaugh on the side reclaiming our country from the forces of evil and the abnormal. We are here on Friday. Let's keep going.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Yes, sirree, Bob. 800-282-2882. Final big busy broadcast hour now underway. I want to send an email, lrushbo@eibnet.us. I want to spend just one more little tiny bit of time on the Trump executive order and the federal statute on which it is based. The federal statute, as I mentioned, dates to 1952. Now, I want to, with the assistance of a column today by National Review's Andy McCarthy. Wait a minute, it might be an editorial. I happen to know he wrote it. It might be an NR editorial. I'm not sure which. Either way, it's Andy's work here, and if it's an editorial, there was some editorial contribution. But in his piece today, reviewing the Ninth Circuit's ruling, and he goes through exquisitely all of the legals of this and explains why Robart, the so-called judge in Seattle and the Ninth Circuit, really have no legal basis on which to stand. But about this executive order, I have people sending me notes after hearing this statute from 1952. Well, why do we even need an executive order then? Why isn't this just the law of the land? Why does Trump need to do anything? Why can't... Well, the executive order actually spells out the presidential action that he's taking, but he doesn't really. The law of the land is, let me read it to you. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens, means a single alien or group, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the U.S., he may, by proclamation, just by saying so, and for as long as he deems necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, i.e. refugees. Or he can impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate, meaning he has total power, total control over who gets into the country and who doesn't, and when they get in, and when they can't be let in. And he can impose any restrictions that he may deem to be appropriate. It's a federal statute written in 1952. And a question arises, well, since this is the law of the land, why can't the president just do what he did? He wrote an executive order, and that executive order gave the left the opportunity to focus on it and not the statute. Somebody even said, why didn't he just write the statute as the executive order? Well, because he then specified a time length that was 90 days, 120 days. For Syrians, it was endless. So he had to add the specifics to it. But I want to give you the history of this statute. Okay, it's 1952, so where did this come from? What caused this to be written? Why did Congress give the president this much power over immigrant and refugee entry to the country? And for this, you go back to a Supreme Court decision in 1948. Chicago and Southern Airlines versus Waterman is the name of the case. Justice Robert Jackson, who was Roosevelt's former attorney general, all right? Roosevelt's former attorney general, and he was the chief prosecutor at Nuremberg, which means we love the guy, right? He was the chief prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials, which really stuck it to the Nazis, right? So we love the guy. So he's eminently respectable, qualified, right? We all agree here. Justice Robert Jackson, former AG, FDR, chief prosecutor at Nuremberg, explained that in this Supreme Court case, that decisions involving foreign policy, including alien threats to national security, are political, not judicial in nature. A Supreme Court justice in 1948 said in a case, Chicago and Southern Airlines versus Waterman, foreign policy, alien threats to national security are political, not judicial. Thus, they are wholly confided, and I'm now reading from Jackson's own ruling in 1948. They are wholly confided by our Constitution to the political departments of the government, executive and legislative. They are delicate, complex, and involve large elements of prophecy. They are and should be undertaken only by those directly responsible to the people whose welfare they advance or imperil. They are decisions of a kind for which the judiciary has neither aptitude, facilities, nor responsibility, and have long been held to belong in the domain of political power, not subject to judicial intrusion or inquiry. So the timeline is that in the Supreme Court case, Chicago Southern Air versus Waterman in 1948, a justice writing for the court, Robert Jackson, wrote what I just read. Essentially, the judiciary is not equipped, it's not prepared, it's not structured, it's not competent to determine national security questions. Chief among the reasons why, they don't get intel briefings. There is no daily brief for the Supreme Court, for example. Judge Roberts hasn't the slightest idea what's going on with Al-Qaeda or what he reads in a newspaper. So after that ruling, Congress wrote the following in 1952. Whenever they took the Supreme Court ruling and codified it and made it statutory law, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. Now, the point here is we have a so-called judge in Seattle and 3 judges at the Ninth Circuit who went looking for precedent, who went looking for legal backing. The United States Supreme Court, in a ruling that is still active today, backed up by a 1952 statute, says they cannot do what they did. This is akin, it's not apples to apples, but remember during the Florida recount in 2000, the United States Supreme Court finally brought the counting to an end by claiming that they had control over it, or over the Florida Supreme Court. The Florida Supreme Court defied an original Supreme Court ruling to stop the count. There's no reason going forward. They gave the legal reasons, and the Florida people kept going, and there was another Supreme Court ruling where they really admonished the Florida Supreme Court. And I remember the Florida Supreme Court chief judge was reading the case, and he was just bamboozled. Well, they're telling us we have to stop. They're telling us we can't do this. Now, they stopped. But the whole point here is, folks, that judicial precedent from the guy who was FDR's, one of his justices, and ran the Nuremberg trials in 1948, proclaimed that the judiciary has no business. You know, another reason why they got no business, because they're not elected. The political process is responsible. They are elected. They owe the people of this country security, national security protection. They are the people, the political class, the judiciary, the legislative and the executive. They are the departments of government that endeavor to protect, to learn, to gather intel. The judiciary doesn't get involved in one iota of this. And so, the legislative branch, after this decision, you know what? We'd be glad to let the president have all this. So they wrote that 1952 statute, writing themselves out of the equation and investing in the president total power, authority to do what Trump did. Trump is not extra-constitutional. He's not unconstitutional. He's not illegal. He's not out of bounds. He's not tyrannical. The tyranny here is coming from the so-called judge in Seattle and the Ninth Circuit. You have a question, Mr. Program. I don't know. What do you mean, stare decisis? You got a precedent? Well, the left only cares about precedent when it confirms what they want to do. They're happy to overturn precedent if it modernizes and advances things. But this is clear to me when you look at the legal history of this whole concept, that if there is a tyranny going on here, if there is anybody operating outside the law that doesn't know what they're doing and has no business being involved, it's the judiciary, as stated previously by the Supreme Court itself. And it was a beloved Supreme Court, by the way, because it was FDR's Supreme Court. They never made a mistake. Because FDR never made a mistake, because FDR was perfect. Right? So, but they're counting on nobody knowing this. They're counting on nobody learning this. They're counting on nobody believing it if they hear it. They're counting on, even if everybody in conservative media gets hold of it, starts labeling it and broadcasting it all over everywhere, the low-information, crowd-watching TMZ will still never hear about it. Okay, so I just watched the video of Betsy DeVos trying to go into a public school in Washington, D.C. And she's met by a handful, maybe 10 or 12 left-wing reprobates, a white guy wearing Black Lives Matter sweatshirt. She was nearly violently restricted from going up the steps and into the school, and then she and her looked like a security guard, an assistant. They hustled back to her vehicle, which was a Suburban, an SUV, and this mob followed her back. They got in the car peacefully, but then this guy tried to obstruct the car leaving, and he was just shouting insanely, "No shame, no shame," or "Shame, shame, shame." I mean, these people, folks, we're dealing here with, this is not time-honored and wonderful and great American descent. This is human debris who have had their minds polluted and poisoned by the American left, from the education system to media to pop culture. They're just sick. And I'll give you, here's a great example. Any of you people know who Trevor Noah is? You know who Trevor Noah is? Wendy, do you know who Trevor Noah is? Brian, do you know who Trevor Noah is? What, you know who Jon Stewart was? Wendy, do you know who Jon Stewart was? Thank gosh, she doesn't know. This is cool. Well, he hosted something called The Daily Show, which was a comedy show on a network called Comedy Central. It was actually deranged anger every night that the left thought was funny. Well, anyway, Stewart left, and they got this guy Trevor Noah from South Africa to come in here and take over the reins and host the program. And he's a nice enough guy, but he's as ignorant as the sun is bright. It's just, it's actually kind of a shame, because the guy doesn't know. I guess it makes sense. If you're ignorant, you wouldn't know how ignorant you are. By definition, you wouldn't know what you don't know. Well, he's very upset because he's supposed to be. He doesn't really know why. He's very upset that Betsy DeVos has been named the Secretary of Education. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know her. All he knows is cliches. She comes from a billionaire family, and that immediately disqualifies her. She's white, that immediately disqualifies her. She's attractive, that really disqualifies her. I mean, if you really get, the left hates attractive conservative white people. They just hate them. And she's blonde. So she's got every ingredient they hate on site. And Trevor Noah, who hosts The Daily Show, was really feeling bad about Betsy DeVos being confirmed. And here's what he said. America seems to be going back to a place where your wealth will determine how much knowledge you can attain. And so I think it's a scary time, said Trevor Noah, concerned citizen. If Betsy DeVos gets to do everything she wants to, and I swear to you, he doesn't know the first thing He may think he knows what school choice is, but he doesn't really know what it is. He just knows he's supposed to oppose it. And he probably thinks school choice is rich people get to choose where they go to school and your kids, get the toilet. Who knows what they think it is, but they're dead wrong about it, as the rest of this quote will demonstrate. He said, if Betsy DeVos gets to do everything she wants to, you will live in a world where even more people who do not have the means will now no longer have the opportunity to achieve the means. Now, the truth is, first, do you understand that? You understand what he's trying to say there? Does that make sense to you? I have the added benefit of being able to read it. I imagine just listening to that, you might be scratching your head. Let me, one more time. If Betsy DeVos gets to do everything she wants to, you will live in a world where even more people who do not have the means will now no longer have the opportunity to achieve the means. Well, in truth, Betsy DeVos is working to do the exact opposite. Betsy DeVos, like every conservative, is working to improve the lot for everybody. That's the point. Betsy DeVos is working to get more poor children into the same good schools as rich kids go to. That's her whole reason for existing in the education world. She wants to expose greater education opportunities to the poor, to everybody, and she has policies to do it. It is the Democrat Party and their teachers' unions who are responsible for the existence of and the maintaining of these decrepit, rat-infested, downtrodden places that are called inner-city public schools. It's the Democrat Party that stands in the way of people acquiring wealth. It is the Democrat Party that seeks, in alliance with its unions, to maintain actual squalid conditions where they exist in the public school system. It is Betsy DeVos who wants to change all of that. Betsy DeVos wants policies that will help bring to millions of others the opportunities she has had. That is what we conservatives are all about. Expanded, extended opportunity for everybody to become the best they want to be. And Mr. Noah literally doesn't know what he's talking about. He thinks he does. And he's saying exactly what he's supposed to say as a good employee over at Comedy Central. We're being guided by and governed by and limited by a degree of ignorance that's hard to quantify because it's so unbelievably widespread. Just sheer ignorance that is the result of prejudice, bigotry, closed-mindedness, a lack of curiosity to find out what might be really going on anywhere. Instead, they descend into the comfort of the cliches within the cocoons they have built where they can feel unharmed. Now, I want to tell you about this little golf shaft business because I know some of you in this audience are golfers, some aficionados, and some just hackers. I love the game, and I have been playing really well. I shot a 76 3 weeks ago. Never shot anywhere near 76, maybe 80, but not recently. And it was a magic that, folks, it was just, it seemed effortless, as it should. I mean, there was no mental stress. My mind wasn't polluted with all kinds of thoughts. The ball was going where I was aimed. It was just, I've never had a day like it. I mean, it was putting for birdie practically every hole. Driver in the fairway. But here's the thing. A couple rounds after that, I have a friend who is a club kook. I mean, new club, he goes and gets a new putter, new driver. He's constantly trying things. And these guys are always trying to get you to do what they do. Here, hit my driver. Here, try my 5-iron. Here, you try this. You do it because it's easier than saying no. And I've been hearing, all my life about the importance of the shaft in a golf club. What is this? Well, they say the shaft is the engine of the club, Mr. Lynn. I've always thought shaft doesn't matter. When somebody wants me to try their club, I always say it doesn't matter. It's never the Indian. I mean, look at the guys, Ben Hogan. Look at these guys that played golf back in the 20s. They're hitting the ball farther than we do with 100-year-old equipment. It's not the equipment. It's whether or not we have a good swing. It's whether or not we put the club on the ball. I mean, you may hit your driver X well, and so I grab it, don't hit as well as I hit mine. It's the swing. It's not the club. But people insist. And so in many cases, just to entertain, because it's easier than providing, resistance, I actually tried 2 different shafts in a new driver I got. It's a Callaway driver. It's the Epic driver. And I'm not kidding. What was the name of the shaft? Kinetix. Kinetix. There's a bunch of different kinds of weights, whether they're stiff, whether they're regular, flex, what have you. But I'm not kidding. Same driver, 2 different shafts. The shaft that I hit second, literally I hit the ball 270 yards, and with the other shaft, 245, 250. So I left that shaft in for the whole day, and it's still in. And I'm hitting that driver 20 yards farther consistently with a different shaft. And my eyes were open. I never believed this. Shaft is a shaft to me. So I thought I would mention this to the golfing community out there, because I'm sure many of you people in the golf community already believe this shaft business and how big a difference it makes. I didn't until I actually saw this. So that we put the shaft in a different driver. We tried all kinds with the same driver, different loft. I use a 9-degree loft. My friend using 10.5. What's funny? Oh, Wendy understands the shaft. Oh, that's right. The shaft talk is making the show interesting to some. That's what it is. Stiff and. I wonder why there's so many smiles in there. I'm talking about stiff shaft and regular shaft and flex and this kind of stuff, and getting a lot of distance out of this too. Yeah. Now I actually am relating to more people than I thought here. But the bottom line is, same driver head but a different loft. 10.5, same shaft, different player, got a little bit more distance out of it. The shaft was the difference. I mean, the driver head's the same, the swing was the same. No, it's Kinetix, Kinetix, with a little x, Kinetix. And I can't tell you right now. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pitch these. I don't know what shaft is in the club. In fact, I don't even have the car today that has the clubs in them. But I know you're going to want to know, so I'll tell you. But folks, I'm 66 years old, and I'm hitting the ball farther than I ever have. 270 yards. I mean, that's huge. It is absolutely, and it's fun. It's fun. I mean, when you connect and it's driving, it's flying, and you know that you've hit one, you just stand there staring at it. We in golf have a term for that, which I cannot utter. I can't even give you a hint as to what it is. But if you want to see these shafts, I'm sure there's a website. What is it? Patterson Shaft. P-E-D-E-R-S-O-N. PattersonShafts.com. Not P-A-T-T. Patterson, P-A-D-E-R-S-O-N Shafts.com. Jason Hordowski is the founder. Gotta be a great guy. And the brand name of the shaft, I guess, is Kinetix. That's the one that's in my driver. Kinetix. But it's PattersonShafts.com. I'm still excited on the other side of the glass here. I'd have brought this up earlier if I'd have known this. Yvette Toledo, Ohio. I'm glad you waited. You're next here on the EIB network. Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
I have to read this to you because I'm so nervous. Okay. I live in Ohio, but I am a tribal member of the Standing Rock Reservation tribe.
Which tribe?
The Standing Rock, where they're trying to put the pipeline through in North Dakota.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
It's on North and South Dakota, the reservation is.
Understand.
Okay. I own a small parcel of land, which is leased for grazing. And I am thankful to be Native American. I didn't do anything to deserve that. You know, my mother married an Indian man. But what I want to say is not all Native Americans are against the pipeline. I think they should just put it through, and I have a reason for that.
Well, this is, again, another example where the left or Democrat Party, however you want to characterize it, tries to make it look like everybody agrees with whatever it is they want. In this case, no pipeline. So they try to make it look like everybody, every Native American. And by the way, right. you all hate the name Washington Redskins too. And it tells you all don't want that pipeline. Every one of you. That's the image they try to convey.
Right. One thing that maybe people don't know is that, I own that small parcel of land, and it's been leased for grazing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, I was offered money from a petroleum company, and they've been looking for minerals on that property that's owned by all these people for a while. Last year, they offered me a large sum of money for it. And, of course, I said, no, thank you. So they're looking for minerals on the reservation, and at the same time, they want them to find minerals, which will give them money, and at the same time, they don't want them to put the pipeline through.
I know. Well, wait a minute. Why did you say no to the petroleum company?
Because I thought if it's worth that much, they want that piece of property. They're looking for minerals. It didn't cost me anything. I'm just going to hang on to it because...
Oh, because you think the price is going to keep going up.
Yeah, and if they find minerals, if they find petroleum on that property, I am a co-owner.
Well, that's true. That's true. So, but your point is that you're not opposed to the pipeline.
No.
The pipeline doesn't cross any tribal land anyway.
No, it doesn't. And I have several relatives that will be mad at me for talking to you about this, but from what I've read on Facebook, on the articles they put on Facebook, it's not even a confirmed sacred ground. They think it may be sacred ground. It's ridiculous.
I know.
It's kind of embarrassing.
If people understand liberalism, every bit of this would make sense. But they get to confuse it by using terms that maybe only are relatable to or understandable to Native Americans, and that makes it sound like it's really exclusive and unique.
Right.
And a special set of circumstances. When this is just a bunch of liberals, and it's the way they do things. And a lot of owners of tribal land are making money by selling the mineral rights, right? You're not just the only one.
Mm-hmm. I figured, it's not going to hurt to hang on to it.
No, of course it's not. But the point is, you're also not opposed to the pipeline.
Right. There are pipelines all over the country. They don't hurt anything.
No.
It's better than a bunch of trucks coming through, a bunch of semis coming through, or
exactly right.
Petroleum.
Much greater risk. Trains. That's the real thing here. Do you know who owns the trains that people suggest is the alternative way of transporting to all? Warren Buffett owns the trains, many of them and so forth. Well, look, I'm glad you called, Yvette. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let us make our final departure, final break of the day. Be right back here. Hey, Joe Montana says, I don't think there is a best quarterback ever. I don't call Tom Brady or anybody the best ever. I wanted to ask you about that. Also want to ask you about the 5 New England Patriots and counting are not going to go to the White House if invited. Chris Long, the son of Howie Long, is not going to go. Devin McCourty, Dante Hightower, LeGarrette Blount, I'm having a middle. There's one other that we're up to 5 Patriots are not going to go. Now, Mr. Kraft, the owner, Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady are going to go. Brady did not go when the Patriots won, and Obama said he had scheduling conflict. But that number's going to keep climbing, folks.
Welcome.